differently.
Soul is the latest film from Pixar Animation Studios, and it was actually the second of two Pixar movies to be released in 2020. And of course, Soul debuted on Christmas Day on Disney Plus. And I sound like a broken record at this point, but Pixar's done it again. Soul is a very good film. And honestly, I don't know how much there is to criticize here. Soul is written and directed by Pete Docter and co-directed by Kemp Powers, who also has a writing credit on the screenplay, along with Mike Jones. And Soul is a movie that is very similar to another Pixar movie that Pete Docter also directed, which is Inside Out. And Inside Out is a movie that I'm a big fan of. So I don't think it's any surprise that I really enjoyed Soul. I really liked what it had to say, and I thought that it was a story that was really important. Obviously, Soul is very similar to Inside Out in terms of its themes and animation and just the overall narrative presentation of this movie. It takes these very esoteric concepts of emotions in the case of Inside Out, or a soul in the case of Soul, and anthropomorphizes them. It gives them a face, so to speak, and we get to see this journey play out that many of us, I think, struggle with this journey within ourselves, and I think being able to visualize it in movies like Inside Out and Soul can be pretty cathartic for those of us that do struggle with these internal feelings. That said, Soul is a movie that doesn't spend a lot of time in the soul realm, and I think that was a big concern going into this film, that the main character, who is black, would be sidelined because the majority of the story would take place with this personified version of his soul. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. The movie spends maybe less than half of the runtime in that realm, and I'm glad that it doesn't spend too much time there, because I think we get just the right amount. And of course, Soul is anchored by its lead performances in Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey, and this is a really talented voice cast here, but these two lead performances are very good and very enjoyable. And again, they remind me a lot of Inside Out, because Amy Poehler was the standout in Inside Out, and I think Tina Fey really shines here in Soul. That said, Jamie Foxx is excellent as the voice of Joe Gardner, and I think people kind of take him for granted. They don't really think about how good of an actor he actually is, because Jamie Foxx is a very versatile performer. He takes on several different roles, and it's easy to overlook some of his more serious, more dramatic turns, but he's more than capable of doing those, and I think he does that here in Soul, and it definitely helps this movie. And you have supporting performances from actors like Daveed Diggs, Angela Bassett. Graham Norton also has a role in the supporting cast, and he is another one of the standouts. He is absolutely fantastic, and his character is one of the more enjoyable parts of not just the soul realm of this movie, but definitely from a performance aspect. And regarding how authentic his character feels, Graham Norton's character feels like someone who has definitely been around for a long time. And if you watch this movie, I think you'll fully understand what I mean when I say that. Soul as with any Pixar film, is beautifully animated. The animation in this movie is so spectacular. It almost looks photorealistic, but at the same time you can tell that it is animation. There are some scenes, specifically regarding the lighting in this movie, that are just absolutely astonishing, that I couldn't help but kind of pause the movie and admire what I was watching, because Pixar is always pushing the boundaries, whether it's from a technical aspect or a storytelling aspect. They are always pushing themselves and looking for ways to improve, and that's on full display here with Soul, and I really, really love that. Soul is obviously a very existential movie, and I think for that reason it really resonated with me. Soul tackles all these interesting, weighty ideas of passion and chasing your dreams and the purpose of life, but it tackles it in a way that's very digestible. This is a movie that can be enjoyed by kids, but is also 100% accessible for adults. And I think the themes that Soul really takes on here are just really interesting and really profound to someone like me, and I'm sure that it will resonate with a lot of you as well. This movie really gets to the root of when you have this idea of who you should be or who you think you are, and what might happen when your preconceived notion of what you're meant to do or what you want to do doesn't quite live up to the expectations. And I think that is a really interesting idea that's present in this film as well, is the idea of expectations. Because I have found out all too well through real life experiences that when you have expectations for things, they don't go well. It's only when you let go of those expectations that you're able to live freely and contently. And there is specifically something that Soul does, both from a narrative standpoint and a thematic standpoint, at the end of this movie that I think is so bold and ambitious that it's really admirable. I think it's something that a lot of us need to see, a lot of us need to hear, and just sort of be with that idea and tell ourselves it's okay if that's the case. And that's why I think Soul is really an impressive film. There's really not a lot to criticize here, because I think the movie just works on every level, and it certainly sets out on what it was trying to do. The one complaint I would have regarding this film is that I think it's just a little bit too long. I think that given the story and how well it was executed, that it probably could have been wrapped up a little bit quicker. I feel like the second act was just a little bit too long, and maybe specifically the last 30 minutes was a little bit too long as well, but those are all really minor in the grand scheme of things when you take in this movie as a whole, really sit down and watch it. Those aren't things that you're going to notice. I've watched this movie twice already, and I definitely had more issues with it on a second viewing, but not enough issues for me to say that this is anything short of an absolutely fantastic film, which it is. I think Soul skews a little bit more kid-friendly than something like Inside Out or even something like WALL-E, but I think Soul has jokes that are there for adults and jokes that are there for the children as well. And again, in terms of story, this movie's very accessible to a wide range of demographics. And of course, this is a movie that is a black story, and I think it does that fairly well. And you can tell the influence that Kemp Powers had over this film, which I think is really nice. because there are some really authentic moments in this movie that I think it's important that they're there. And I think one scene in particular with the barbershop is probably one of the most enjoyable scenes in the film, and it's something that Kemp Powers fought for. And you can actually get a little bit more information about this specific scene by watching Pixar shorts on Disney Plus. There is one specifically about Kemp Powers and working on Soul. So check that out if you would like. I think it's a really cool little mini-series that Disney Plus has put together. Other than that, I would recommend Soul to everyone. I think it's a highly entertaining, very emotional, very existential film. It is thought-provoking, and it's a movie that's going to leave you lost in thought for a little while after you finish it. It's well animated, it's well written, well directed, the voice cast is great, and Pixar has just done it again. Everything that they set out to do with this movie, they accomplished. And it's really just quite remarkable how consistent they are with releasing good movies. I would love to work for them. But that's beside the point. If you would like to tell me how wrong I am, feel free to do so in the comment section below. Otherwise, Soul is available to stream on Disney Plus at no additional charge. This is not a Mulan situation, so check it out because I think it's really, really good. In terms of where it ranks in the Pixar pantheon, I honestly don't know because so many of them are just so good. I honestly have no clue how I ranked those movies last year to begin with. I think Soul is up there for me. Let me put it that way. But that'll be all for today. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. May your heart be your guiding key.